Hi there, here is Christina from Changing Parenting. And if, in those situations where your child does something and you get really, really embarrassed and like, oh my God, everyone is staring, everyone thinks I'm an awful parent. Well, in those situations, if you, just let your emotions run the show, if you mindlessly react to all your emotions, what will happen? You will really overreact to your child because it's no longer about what your child did. It's about how you are feeling. And you are feeling so much worse than you would have been feeling if that situation had happened at home when you were alone with your child, right? Because you are being, on top of all the, annoyance of the situation, you are also feeling really judged and overwhelmed and like, I need to stop this right now because everyone is staring. So you will end up overreacting, right? And you will be either screaming or over punishing or being really, really very strict, right? And two things will happen when you do that. One thing can happen is if your child is used to fear-based parenting. So if you are teaching your child old school style where you do as I say, and it's my way or the highway, you live under this roof and you will follow my rules. And if you do, probably you're not watching this video. But if you would be like that, then your child would be afraid of you and they would do what you say. Not because they understand why the behavior is wrong, not because they understand what they should do next time they want to do that they want that or they feel that next time, but because they fear you, right? Because of how you responded. Because their whole demeanor in life when they are with you is not about the behavior itself or what's happening itself, but how it affects you, right? These are children that later become people pleasers, etc. I have other videos on that. But anyway, if your child is used to fearing you, they will obey. Maybe that's what happened when you were a kid. Your parents only had to look at you and you would obey because, it was fear-based parenting. You are used to fear your parents, right? Not because you understand why you should behave, but that's how you do it, because you fear your parents, because you fear what will happen to you if you don't do it. And the second thing that can happen, and if you are not a fear-based parent, this is most likely what will happen, is that the behavior will escalate. Because basically what's happening is like this. Your child wants something, let's say they want a toy, or maybe they are feeling something like, I'm cold, I want a jacket, or I'm hungry, I want to eat now, right? Especially I specialize in ages 3 to 6, and children in this age group, they are very egocentric. The whole world revolves around them, right? So if I'm hungry now, I want to eat now, that's it. That's how their brain works, right? And it's our job as parents to teach them the skills they need to deal with those feelings, right? But if instead of doing that, you say, I don't care what that you want to eat now, right now we are doing this, the world doesn't revolve around you, come and do this, your child, if your child is not used to fear-based parenting, they will not fear you, right? Which is a good thing if you think about it, right? Your child's not afraid of you, which is a thumbs up for you. Instead, what will happen is that they will get hurt and upset and angry, right? Like, why are you talking to me like this? I want this. Why aren't you giving me what I want, right? Again, they are egocentric. The whole world revolves around them. So they don't really have that impulse of putting themselves in your shoes and seeing it from your perspective unless you teach it. And even if you teach it very often, in this age group, it's not something that their brain is able to just do automatically. So they need repetition, they need help with this. So what will happen is they will get even more upset. They will behave even worse, right? They will behave even worse. You probably already experienced this. Your child wants a book in the bookstore and you say, no, we cannot buy anything today. And instead of being like, oh, okay, we cannot buy anything today, they're like, but I want it, even louder, right? And then because you get like overwhelmed because how people are reacting, you are like, hey, stop that, we don't scream. And then they grab a book and throw it on the floor. And then everyone is like, look at this parent, has no control over their kids, which by the way is a good thing. I just made a video about that. And you're like, oh my God, everyone thinks I'm an awful parent and all that and blah, blah, blah. And then you start getting even more upset and you grab your child or, and it just escalates. And the reason it escalates is because, again, your child is not scared of you. right? If you escalate it really a lot, they will get scared of you and they will stop, right? But that's not what you want, right? If you follow me, that's not what you want. You don't want your child to be scared of you, right? So what shall we do instead? What you need to do instead is, like always, you need to focus on you first. You cannot parent your child unless you self-regulate. That's not possible, because we all do say, and do things and say things and act in ways we later regret when we let our emotions run the show. That's like that everywhere in our lives, right? If your emotions are high, you cannot access the rational part of your brain. You will just end up doing and saying things you will then regret later and be like, I shouldn't have said that to my son. I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have reacted like that with my daughter. The situation was not, what they did was not that bad for what I clearly overreacted, and I regret having done that, right? And you know that what I'm saying is true. So what do you need to do? You need to self-regulate first. And this will vary from person to person. Each person is different. We all have different ways to self-regulate. But if you are really struggling with what everyone else around you is doing, saying, which, by the way, very often they are just, living their own lives. They might look, but then they are just busy with their own lives, right? But in that moment, I understand that, like, our rational brains are not working again because our emotions are high, right? So we cannot believe it like, oh, that people looked at me because maybe they were looking in this direction, or maybe they got startled by the noise. You immediately like, they're judging me. So you need to block that out. And one way that I find that really helps me personally is to block all senses. So I cover my ears, I close my eyes, I take a few deep breaths, and then I practice mindfulness in a way that I call it eye mindfulness. I don't know if this exists. It's just what I do personally, which is I focus 100% on my son's eyes. That's it. Just focus on the eyes, right? Focus on the eyes to let you bring back to the moment, to try and block everything else. Same way as if you practice mindfulness of breath, you're constantly, every time your thoughts go somewhere, you bring them back with your breathing. You do the same by looking at your child's eyes, like focusing, right? And this also helps your child connect, pay attention to you. And as soon as you start feeling more relaxed, that's when you help your child self-regulate, and that's when then you connect with your child so that you can then correct the behavior and teach them what is appropriate. Explain to them why they cannot have the book and what can we do instead. Maybe we can take a picture and send to Santa Claus for Christmas, or put it on your birthday shopping list. Or maybe we can take a picture and it's for your allowance, so you have ideas of what you want to do with your allowance. Whatever it is, right? You cannot get to this part of correcting before you connect. It's the principle of positive discipline, always connection before correction. So you need to first connect with your child. And you need to help your child self-regulate, because if it's hard for you, imagine for a child that has their brain very underdeveloped. 3 to 6, they just arrived at this world, right? They really need help with this self-regulation, right? So how do you connect? Well, one way that we connect very well with people is through empathy. Because if I tell you I just missed my train, what I want from you in that moment is someone to say, yeah, that sucks. That's how you get down, right? It's through empathy. And that's why very often in positive discipline, the way you connect is by empathizing with what the child is feeling. Not by saying those empty words, I see you are upset, but we cannot buy the book, but actually being like empathizing. Like, oh, you really wanted that book because it looks so much fun. Like, it's so pretty. I love the cover. What do you like the best about this book? Only after you connect with your child can you go to the correction part. And you can only connect with your child after you self-regulate. I hope this was helpful. If you need help with your specific child, with what's happening in your life, check out changingparenting.com.